Okay. Outside of that, probably not. Yeah, famous. Yeah, okay, so that's one topic we can talk about. Quinn?
What causes you to understand thinking
Owning?
voting?
Oh, voting. Okay. Voting, love. Anything else? I'm sorry?
Almost every public that I'm not using.
Sorry to hear that. Carmen? Jeez, okay. Queen, I must say, voting, I'm not really quite sure. Maybe if you can change that a little bit, that there are things you know you should do, but you don't. That sounds a bit more doable for me. Maybe you can take that question to your poli-sci class if you have. Yeah, okay. Carmen's question was about, yes, lying. Okay. Jessica, anything? What is that? A who? Good morning. I really can't eat that. I mean, I used to, and I would want to, but I probably may die. Probably saying, well, living, dying, what's the difference? Especially for you at this age. Something to look forward to.
The only creature that does this on planet.
Oh, you guys. Okay. So maybe we can talk about love and then doing something or wanting to do something but you don't. And then you should, okay. Anything else that's maybe a bit less or more exciting? Ivan? May I ask why you're interested?
Because my life was weird. I never really thought like the attraction was built up like that. I just thought it happened. Like
Yeah.
breaking it down, you start off like it was something that they said, something that they did, the way they smelled. I never really thought of it that deep. I thought it was like, oh, that person looked nice. And then that was it.
Let me chase him. Okay. Yeah, that's one of the miseries of just sitting and writing or thinking thoughts. And then you're forced to unpack things and you realize it's really complicated. It's not as easy. All right, so are you guys interested in this? Yeah, we had nothing else going on. So, you know, Telia, when I was younger, I remember going out with this young woman. I met her at this party, and she was showing a lot of skin. And I suppose being a man and somewhat of a visual creature, she was like quicksand. the more I looked, the more I gravitated towards her. And then we got into a relationship. And then a few years, or not a few years, but a few weeks later, she whispers into my ears that she has a boyfriend. And then one day, as I was dropping her home, I hear this huffing and puffing sound behind me, and it was her boyfriend. He was a bodybuilder, Godzilla of a fellow. He looks at me and says, "What are you doing with my woman?" And so we kind of just sat and talked, and I realized I really like him. So I went out with him. Just joking, but we got into a fight. As I've gotten a little older, I've come to understand a few things about being attracted to women who show a lot of skin. Knowing myself to be a bit of a jealous person, being somewhat of a possessive temperament. The moment I gravitate towards anyone who shows a lot of skin, I can picture myself like 2-3 months in the future, taking her to my parents, to my friends, walking around the lake, and having her kind of advertise herself to the public. And I'm not going to be comfortable about any of that. So that becomes a complete turn-off for me. And the point I'm trying to make, even though I'm making the story up, is that what used to be attractive to me some 20 years ago becomes a thing of disgust for me now. Maybe it has to do with age, maybe it has to do with my understanding of how I'll be in a relationship where someone, I suppose, in my worldview lacks a bit of modesty. So I try to stay away from those things. So let's talk about attraction first. And it's an interesting phenomenon because you have to cut the human being in 4 parts. There's an episode that took place about 3,000 years ago in ancient Greece where someone goes to Socrates. Do you know who Socrates is? It's some ancient philosopher. And says to him that there is this brand new guy who's come to our city, and he's like Cristiano Ronaldo. You know, he's got these biceps and these abs and cheekbones and lips and eyes. Just come take a look at him. He looks like a god. And they go to the gymnasium and they see this man, and Socrates says, "Oh my God, such a beautiful man, but let's go and have a chat with him to see if he can think as beautifully as he looks." And then after a while he says, "Let me see if he actually feels what he says, if his emotions are as beautiful as the way he looks." And then he says, "Well, I wonder if he has a beautiful soul, the way his body is so beautiful." And you realize some 3,000 years ago they did something profoundly fascinating about human beings. That someone could be physically profoundly attractive, but they kind of unveil their history to you and you realize, oh man, all that stuff they have going inside them, I don't think I want to deal with that. And all of a sudden, the physical beauty becomes a thing of ugliness. And sometimes you realize, man, you know, they're physically very attractive, but intellectually they really, really suck. They can't think, they can't speak. And there's a good chance that someone who doesn't have the proper emotions, doesn't know how to unpack them, doesn't know how to express them well, and someone who doesn't think well, and therefore their language is a little foggy, they probably haven't cultivated a soul. And so, first off, you need to understand something about us. We have the physical, we have the emotional, we have the intellectual, and if you're very, very lucky, there is a soul inside you. We call it the spiritual. Okay? So we can be attracted to 4 different things, and not all at the same time. It doesn't happen. If you look at the brand new image of Jesus Christ that came about maybe 5, 6 years ago, anthropologists, sociologists came together and said, okay, this is Palestine, Jesus came from Palestine. Let's see what sort of a face he could have had. And so they put this set of images together and they come up with this face. And you should Google it. It's so ugly. It's so unattractive. Very much like Socrates. And the thing you need to kind of examine is, since human beings are visual animals, we gravitate towards things that look so good. Why is it that a number of people are following such unattractive people like Socrates, like Jesus? And the truth is, there is something about us that can detect things that are not just merely physical. We are really the sort of animals that gravitate towards beauty of the emotions and beauty of the intellect and beauty of the soul, okay? So you take your boyfriend home because, I just say, assume that you're a hetero, and you say to your mom, Mom, this is Joe Schmo, isn't he beautiful? And the first thing your mom asks Joe Schmo, do you have a job? Have you done with school? Do you have money? Are you with your parents? And what your mom is wanting to know is, does he have a beautiful history? Because having a beautiful face is not enough. And so being a bit more seasoned, being a bit more experienced, knowing the difficulties and complexities of life, your mom is looking for a different set of beautiful things that she's hoping that could exist in this man. So what you find to be attractive, namely some guy who looks good, your mom is looking for a different set of attractions, and should she not find them, what is beautiful to you in your eyes, she's going to deem as ugly and unattractive. And then she's going to question your decision-making abilities. Tilia, I've raised you under my own wings. Don't you think? Are you that stupid? You see how difficult life has been the past few years? And then you go out and pick losers. What's wrong with you? So, number one, 4 different parts. The more immature, and by immature I mean the more unseasoned and unrefined your thinking processes are, you're going to gravitate towards the most superficial. And there's a reason. You look at Jireh, this beautiful man. Turn around. Let her look at you. See? What is there not to like? It's easy. You quickly fall victim to his beard, to his glowing skin, beautiful eyes. And then the more difficult is taking down his number, taking him to Pete's Coffee, and figuring out his history. That takes effort. And that takes too much time and energy on your part. And you're not really there yet. You don't really care. You're just having a good time. That's what you want. So remember, the easiest is the physical. Then you get deceived by the way people speak. Oh, he speaks so well. And then he tells you, I've read this book and that book, and so wow, that's great. And then things happen in life and it just kind of erupts emotionally every 10 seconds. And you say, well, this is no way to live life. For someone who looks good, thinks well, but has no control over their emotions, they explode every 10 minutes. Okay? So remember, as you move up, it takes more time and effort on your part, which means that you have to kind of get to the place of maturity so that you can overcome the temptation of falling victim to his physical and become interested in his intellectual and then emotional, and then you guys are far too young for a soul, so let's just keep it there. Now, let's say you're attracted to his physical. Turn around, let it Ricky. Well, it's a tiny little seed, and if you want to protect the seed of attraction, what do you need to do? You need to water it, give it some air, good soil. You go to him. If you're shy, if you're reserved, you have to overcome that. Otherwise, if you don't do that, that seed will just be trampled upon by shyness or by distraction of sorts. You won't even think about him. So you'll go to him and say, hey, aren't you in my ethics class? He says, no, I don't think I know you. Now, that puts a damper on you a little bit. You've been sitting in this room for the past like 10, 12 weeks, and you've been invisible to him. So no, I think you're in the ethics class. You know. He says, oh yes, you're the woman in the back, right? T, some strange name. T, Lee, yeah? And, well, I'm just trying to make time go by fun and quickly. Connor doesn't find it funny, so it's okay. So that's how you nourish the seed. You become playful. You become a political animal. How do you keep the conversation going? And then he says, I'm sorry, I gotta head to class. And then you say, oh, I'll walk with you. And then intentionally you trip. He looks at you and says, Telia, are you okay? Yeah, I think I broke my ankle. Can you pick me up and take me to my house? Looks like a strong, powerful man. Picks you up. Sounds good so far? You know, puts you in the trunk. His back seat is full of stuff. And drives you to your house. And all of a sudden you're saying, you know, while I was in the trunk, it was so dark. I had a vision. Jesus came to me. And he said, Telia, your ankle is healed. You jump out and you run to the house. You say, Jure, let me repay your kindness with a cup of tea. Come in. So the point I'm trying to make is the way you protect the seed of attraction is you invest time, energy, sacrifice, imagination, fantasy. If you don't do that, it's not going to happen. And it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be a video game. It could be a car. It could be what class do I need to take in order to graduate. But you have to keep thinking about your future. I want to graduate. And the more you think about it, the more serious it'll become. The less you think about it, you say, okay, well, maybe I can take it next year. And so like many of my students, you know, they come to my class at the age of 18. I run into them again at the age of 25, then 30, then 40, and 50. What are you doing here? This is my last year. That's what happens when you don't protect the seed. And so once the seed of attraction is formed, what happens is initially it takes such a small space inside you. But as you spend more time with him, you think about him more often. And the more you think about him, the more feelings, the more thoughts about maybe 5 years from now, or 2 weeks from now, 2 hours from now, we'll hold hands. We'll walk around the lake and get mugged. And he'll protect us. So now the seed of attraction becomes the seed of curiosity. You Google his name. If he has a checkered past, if he has a job, if he's a gigolo, who the hell knows these days? And then you call him and say, hey, you know, I'm making some chicken tikka masala. It's an Indian dish. and he looks at you or says to you, "Are you Indian?" No. Well, how do you know chicken tikka masala? Well, now you have to ask yourself, should you lie or should you be honest? You could say, well, you know, my ex-boyfriend, he used to take me to this Indian place all the time. And he's going to say, what is she, crazy? She just met me. She's talking about her ex. You know what? I don't have time for this nonsense. Or do you lie? Question Carmen asked. Do you say, well, you know, I was sitting and watching a movie and all of a sudden there was this advertisement about chicken tikka masala. You lie. Right, Carmen? It's never good to be honest. And you become curious. You ask about his parents, you ask about his job, you ask about his savings, if he has a car, if he's single, he's got kids, his parents, where he came from. What's the difference between his culture and the American culture? If he likes Americans. So you ask a lot of questions. If he doesn't like you that much, he's going to say, I've only been in America for about 3 weeks and I got to tell you, I hate every single one of them. The truth is, he doesn't hate them, he just doesn't want to be with you. So you being attracted to him is not enough. He's got to be attracted to you as well. So when you become curious and ask a lot of questions, the seed kind of grows a little bit, which means it occupies more space. You know, like when you get cancer, when you get sick, and you don't take the proper food, vitamins, you get sicker and sicker and sicker, and then you die. And so after you realize your curiosity has been nourished a little bit, something amazing happens. And remember, curiosity means you invest more time, more energy. You're a bit more focused on him now. Is that okay? You like that? Good job. So for those of you, by the way, who thought that God brings people into your life, and then you fall in love with their soul and something you call like a soulmate, no. Yeah, Connor.
What's your favorite philosopher?
It depends on the day.
I like Diogenes. He was very blunt.
It depends on the day. Yeah, but I understand. He's a good man. Yeah.
So does social media make it harder to find actual connections because we're actually just all looking at each other through physical looks?
Yeah, but I'm giving you a real scenario. It's a real scenario. I mean, it's not like out there. I mean, it's something that you can do after class. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying, it's the potential is there. Right, Jure? See? Now, have any questions? No one? No? Ugh. No.
Why do we try so hard to change people?
Can you put your relationship with Jure on pause for a minute? Well, then the story, it's a relationship. Let me just pause that and then. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you remember the first day of this class? Were you high? Well, you don't remember the first day? Do you remember what I said and how you responded? Jure is multifaceted. He can be with yeah, go ahead.
I think she wasn't really happy with how you for the class that she wanted to sound more aggressive and discussion. She was so and then you start to teach. So
Jesus.
like 20 years old, as you see more life inside,
You see that? Now that is a beautiful mind, not just a beautiful body.
Now I remember.
Do you remember how you spat in my face?
We kicked you to the ground, yeah.
Yes. And we wrestled for hours. So I come to class with the way I am. Did you think I know better? No. Did you appreciate my age and experience and culture? No. You're just selfish. And you just say, Amir, I don't like the way you do business in this class. Please let me change you. Can we have conversation? No. Well, if we don't have dialogue in this class, it's going to make me uncomfortable. I'm not going to feel easy. It's not going to be a vibrant class. I'll probably fall asleep. Can you please change your ways so I could feel better? No. I don't know you. I'm not interested in you. I don't care for you. You feel that uneasy? Drop the class. I am unwilling to change for an 18-year-old. I said, but I am Cadence. God's creation. You're not just rejecting me, you're rejecting Yahweh. How could you? So, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. And then you sat somewhere and you said, well, do I need this class? Yes. Do I need to graduate? Yes. Should I tolerate this man from the Middle East? Well, if I want to graduate, yes. But if I was to go to his dean and complain, will his dean have the power to change him? Well, that depends on their relationship and whether or not Amir really cares for his superiors. And the way he is, I don't think he does. So you did something really smart. You kept your mouth shut. And little by little, you realized, well, the class isn't all that bad. Once in a while, it's interesting. I can raise my hand and ask questions. Why did you want to change me? Because for the past maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years of you being a student, every class you walk into, there is interaction. Maybe out of respect, your teachers, your friends, your enemies told you, oh, Cadence, you think so well about this and that. Maybe in your imagination, you assume that you've read a lot of books, therefore you understand a lot of things. And here you come to this class, you raise your hand, very respectfully, and you say, I would like everyone to have a conversation. America, democracy, you're not Donald Trump. Just say yes. And I say no. And so you realize, well, you have to overcome a number of habits inside you. That's why we want people to change. Now, if I was to put your question within the context of romantic relationships, I'll give it in the following way. If you want to be in a relationship, either find someone who's very much like you, which will not be very tolerable, because all of us in this class desire some change once in a while. You don't want a carbon copy of yourself. The second, find someone very, very young. 18. And make sure that you have a lot of power over them. Because what they will want to do, if they love you more than you love them or like you more than you like them, is that they will make sure that they will simply want to please you. And in them wanting to please you, they will change. They will make sacrifices. And if you stay with them long enough, and if you threaten them constantly, they will change. If on the other hand you go out with someone like me, set in their ways, don't wait until like 35 to find someone. It won't work. Because you're talking about two concretes wanting to make things work. And the only way it'll work is one concrete to be banged up pretty badly. unless you guys just have a lot of things in common. We want people to change because we think that our position is right. And sometimes your position is right. The only problem is, well, you have to wait for the other person to grow up, to see things, to experience things, to hit a dead end. I mean, all this idea about polygamy these days, pansexual and plate sexual and bowl sexual and saucer sexual, I have no idea what they mean. I mean, given the shortness of human life, given the complexities of life, given the fact that all of us in this class desire stability, and being with a number of people, that's no way to create stability in your life. It's temporary. And you're going to get older, you're going to get sicker, you're going to get uglier, and then you realize, well, no one wants to be around you. And this is not a culture that has that particular software in it. It's a foreign software. You have to like take it from some country, some culture, bring it here, inject it. It won't work. It's like me trying to act like I'm 20. So is it good? My recommendation would be the following. Find someone who is a lot more mature than you are. Make sure that there is a part of you attracted to that person. Fall in like or love with that person. Let them change you for the better. And when you hang out with someone who is mature, who's been there, who's done that, is that they demand responsibility from you. Maturity, thinking, reflecting. They don't want to see you throwing a temper tantrum every 10 minutes. And if you're patient for about 10 years, your life will be transformed for the better. I.e., just don't hang out with losers. Yeah.
Do you think that eventually, if you hang around a certain group of people, you start to adapt to?
Oh, yeah. Because you want to conform. You want to be liked. All of us in this class enjoy being in cults. It gives us meaning. It could be a cult of your family. Nothing wrong with that. It could be a church. It could be the mega movement or MAGA movement, however it's called. Okay? But we need a few friends, and they always seek their approval. I mean, I don't know your relationship with your aunt, but I'm thinking that the two of you are very close, and you respect what she says. And just in case she reprimands you, you're going to take it very personally. You're going to be hurt. You're going to doubt yourself. You realize that there's some parts of it that are sad about you. And you have failed her in some shape or form. And so what you'll do is you'll give her a call or send her a text saying, Auntie, I'm really sorry. I'll try to be better. That's what we do. And it's much better to please people like your aunt, who are much older, who are much more seasoned by life. Because what can an 18-year-old really demand of you? Just, why don't you drink with us? Why don't you go to a party with us? These are the demands of an 18-year-old. Your aunt, that's not what she wants. You have friends like Pinocchio. Just skip your classes. Let's go out and have fun. Your aunt will say, no, don't skip classes. Stay in there. Doesn't matter how boring, how disgusting they are. Just stay in there. Get a degree and get out. And you realize, well, what your aunt demands is a bit more difficult. It demands responsibility, maturity. You have to be a little bit of an adult. Your friends, on the other hand, no. But regardless, unless you're a monk, like Iska, or a monkette, okay? What you need to do is, you have a good amount of experience under your belt, and you realize, you know what? I need to figure things out on my own. I don't need to be told right or wrong by other people. I need the wisdom of it myself. When that happens, you realize you don't belong to any cult. You can't. You don't respect anyone. You don't fear anyone. But that's the last stage. So, yeah, we have no choice but to desire other people to tell us good, bad, maybe. Iska will tell you. Sometimes, you have a daughter, right? Yeah, her daughter. Dad, Mom, let's go here, right? And she says, I really don't want to go there. But then she looks at her daughter's eyes and her body language. She says, fuck. Honey, let's go. And that's how it is. You try to please the world of a 12-year-old. Otherwise, she won't talk to you for the rest of the day, or she'll be sitting somewhere moping around. It starts at a very, very young age. All parents are held hostage by their kids. I mean, so since Telia isn't here, let's talk about lying. I'm sorry.
Actually, change the question.
Sure.
For the Adam and Lilith video, talks about how Eve kind of reminds you after you live in the physical world a little bit of reflecting, and Eve kind of brings in dissatisfaction. If you act on that dissatisfaction and you try to change things, what is the outcome? Do you become happier? Do you go back to
Okay.
embodying Adam?
Okay. Let's say at the beginning of the semester you look at the schedule and ask yourself what classes you need to take so you could be done with Laney as quickly as you possibly can. And you look at some forms and you realize that you need Humanities 30A, ethics, human values. That gets you a step closer to your goal, which is leaving Laney and ultimately, hopefully, Oakland altogether. You come to the class and you realize you don't like the class. Why you don't like it, that's besides the point. So you want to graduate. You think about your future. You think about money. You think about job. You think about leaving Oakland physically. The moment you come to class, you have a certain set of emotions that contradict your rational life, which is, I have to take this class because of A, B, C, D reasons. But emotionally, the moment I walk in, I just don't feel comfortable. The way he looks, the way he smells, the way he talks, the way he expresses ideas, I don't like it. Now, when your mom asks you, well, what exactly is it you don't like? I don't really know, I just don't like it. And that's one of the things. You intuit something. And what your mom demands is, can you express your intuition within the context and boundaries of language? And you try. And then you look at your mom and you see the look of confusion. Say, Mom, wasn't that clear? No, honey, I have no idea what the hell you were talking about. Can you try again? And you try again and again and again. And the more you do it, the more confused she gets. And in the end, she walks away saying, I'm sorry, Carmen, I don't really know what you're talking about. You told me that you need this class to graduate. Now you tell me you don't want to be in it. That's going to delay your graduation in the semester. It's up to you. Honey, you're an adult. You're an American. But what happens when you listen to the voice of your intuition? Well, there's going to be a delay in you graduating. You have no idea how your mom is going to feel. You have no idea how you yourself are going to feel and how your future is going to unfold. Everything all of a sudden becomes a question mark. When the semester began, you knew everything and how they're going to unfold. Now, you're in the dark. How's that going to make you feel? Well, not very good. Now, one of the things about stories in the Old Testament, New Testament, the Quran, the Dhammapada, Tao Te Ching, whatever book you want to name, one of the problems with the story is the following. You can interpret stories literally. There was a guy named Adam, and there was a gal named Eve, and there was in fact Yahweh, and a garden, and a serpent. That's a literal translation. You could do it metaphorical, or it's an analogy. It's nothing but a set of symbols that have to be decoded. Now, one of the things about the human mind is that you're very, very imaginative. You're very creative. And we inject meaning into things. I don't know if there was a video about this pastor somewhere who said that the hurricanes that are currently taking place is because of God being angry at the LGBTQ community. Well, you're not going to talk about climate change because that's too much rationality for you, you know? So how do you explain all the awful things that are happening now? Well, you say it's God. And it's been done for a long, long time. So that's the thing you need to understand, that we have this tendency of injecting things into stories that don't even maybe belong there. Okay? I don't know who wrote these stories. All I can tell you is the story of Adam and Eve, the story of creation, predates the Old Testament, predates the Quran. You can find it in the ancient Sumerian text that goes way, way back about 5,000, 6,000 before Abraham, before even the writing of these books, the Old and the New Testament and the Quran, okay? Now, my interpretation of the story, and you can disagree with it, is that Adam symbolizes the human physical body and your interaction with the physical life. You know, you're getting older, so you are looking for someone to marry, and you want a child. One morning you wake up and there is a knock on your door inside you. Are you really happy? Well, where the hell did this come from? You haven't been asking these questions for the past 10 years, and all of a sudden you ask why you're unhappy? How does it happen? Well, there is this creative force inside you. And it's something that I think Franz Kafka, the novelist, philosopher, talked about, that, you know, just being a human being is being a condemned animal. You have lots of money, you feel poor. You're in a relationship, you feel single. You have a house, it just doesn't feel like a home. You have all these people around you, you feel abandoned. Why? Who the hell knows? There is something about us that once in a while comes up and says, it's not enough. It's insufficient. Life is bad. For whatever the reasons are, it seems Adam is quite content. The physical body, the secular way of thinking about life, what Karl Marx had argued, capitalism reduces human beings to simply meat. You wake up in the morning, you go to the factory, you make some money, you go to the butcher, you buy some milk, the baker, you get some bread, you come home, you eat, you shit, you sleep. The routine begins over and over and over again. Why? Because, well, you have a system that designs human being to function like a rat. There is something about us that says it's not enough. Now, one thing I should mention, you know, sometimes you come to class and you say, I just want to do business. That's my goal. It's always been my goal. And let's just say you take a class, let's say this class, forgive me. Let's say this class, and you found the ideas to be interesting, challenging, and all of a sudden you go home and you say, do I really want to do business? Maybe I should do philosophy. Maybe I should do religion. Maybe I should do humanities. And all of a sudden, the course of your life changes because of a different piece of advertisement. Okay? So things on the outside have the power to influence you, to transform you, to change you. Sometimes change happens organically. Okay? Now, when change happens organically, it kind of could mean the following. You have a job, you have a house, you got kids, you got a husband, you got a family. Everything is good. Your parents, uncles, aunts, a good community, nice cult to which you belong. Eve, part of you, and in Hebrew, Sheva means Adam gives you a certain life, Eve's give you a different kind of a life. Eve says, why don't you paint? Why don't you play the piano? Why don't you take the money that Adam makes and buy yourself a guitar? Instead of buying high heels, the way Adam does, Eve says, wear some running shoes and go hiking in Yosemite. That's what Eve does. So Eve always kind of inspires the more creative part of you. And the problem with the creative part is that it doesn't go with the social milieu. In other words, you want to have a conversation about things that are creative, inspiring, but I'm very much by the book. And every time you say, can we talk about A, B, C, D, I shut it down because that's not my style. And should you stay in this class more, okay, and should you feel more discontent, there comes a point eventually you have to make a decision. Will you give me the power to eventually clip your wings and silence the Eve inside you? Because once I clip the wings, they will be forgotten for a long, long time until either the whisper roars back or you take another class and the instructor begins to inspire you in a certain way. Okay, so there's a part of us that's very grounded, knows the difficulties, complexities of physical life. There's this other part of us that says, very much like Iska, you know, there's a part of you that has lived as a certain gender. And you love your mom, you love your dad, you love your friends, you don't want to rock the boat too much, you don't want to create waves, you're not even unsure of it yourself. So you try to be a political animal. You want to make sure that the love that other people feel for you, the love you feel for them remains the same. Conformity, you want meaning, you want people to like you. Okay? And if you have a great relationship with your parents, you certainly don't want to be the cause of pain for them. So every time this whisper comes up and says, are you sure? Can you do this? How much longer can you do this? You know, and all of us suffer from this. You know, you kind of just say, just try to shut this part of yourself down. No, can't be. I am this way. I know I am this way. I've always been this way. People call me by this. I am this. But as you entertain the seed of attraction we talked about, as you begin to kind of become more and more attracted to this particular voice, both of them. Hello. As this other part, this Eve part, let's just call it, which is, you know, the Shiva part of you says, Carmen, life really is too short. Before you know it, you're going to be 60. This is a dead-end road. You know, there is no upward mobility here. This is it. And so there comes a point where this Eve part takes over. And the more you think about it, the more you read about it, the more you have conversation with your friends about it, the more momentum and force it gains. And the more momentum and force it gains, you begin to have something you didn't have. Courage. And the more courage you begin to have, the more selfish you become. It's my life. Do I lie to myself or do I lie to my parents? And there comes a point you say, everything revolves around me. I want my life to revolve around Eve, my intuition. And then you go home and you sit your mom down and say, Mom, I got something to tell you. Now the Adam part of you is shaking because you have no idea how the people you love are going to they're going to be, how it's going to impact them. Say, Mom, you know I was married, right? Yes. You know I have a child, right? Your granddaughter, yes. But I've had this feeling ever since I was 2. I just wasn't sure. But I think now it's time. And the Eve part comes out. The Eve doesn't care about money. The Eve doesn't care about stability of the physical life. The Eve is like the Buddha. I'm going to go into the forest. I'm going to figure out what truth is. The Eve is like Socrates. The Eve is like anyone who's been in an abusive relationship, even with yourself. You're just done with lying. And you know that if you were to be honest and truthful, your entire world is going to turn upside down. All the stability, security is going to be gone. But the Eve, again, it gives you such passion and such courage, and you just don't care. And that's how mass movements are made. You just don't care. And you go to your mom and you say, well, this is it. And your mom looks at you and says, oh, honey, I was waiting for this. I knew. I knew from the time you were 2 or 3 or 4. I just knew. I'm a mom, I was hoping you'd get married, give me like 50 grandkids, But you just need to know that your life is going to be very tough. Right now in our culture, we don't have the proper narratives for this particular lifestyle. And things need to be ironed out. By the time things are really, really ironed out and smooth, it's probably about 200 years from now. Are you willing to suffer the consequences? But the Eve part doesn't really care. Yeah, of course I am. And now, if the Adam part of you had its own set of friends, the Eve comes out and says, you know what? I don't want those friends anymore. I want a community of friends who understand me. So that whisper, you can call that the serpent, bites you, poisons you a little, and then it just, spreads into your blood system. And before you know it, you just don't care. The only thing you care is for the Eve part to come out fully. Carmen, forgive me, I forgot your question. I don't even know. So, okay. Quinn?
So if someone's a parent and they don't want their child to suffer, just lots of things, you allow yourself to could, them telling their child oh, no matter what, would that feel like they would feel more comfortable and stuff instead of suffering for a long time?
Well, I think parents say a lot of things without really understanding what they're saying. They think like when they tell their kids, you can tell me anything. Yeah, if you don't like vanilla, just tell me you don't like vanilla, I'll give you chocolate. So depending, of course, on the age of the child and how diverse in thinking and feeling parents are, and how observant and how much they paid attention, right? If they have zero clue about what's happening, if a child goes to them and says, Dad, I know you thought I was a this, but I'm a that, that's like an earthquake. Everything is upside down. If on the other hand, you have parents who've always been aware, and they've been conservative, they've been traditional, and parents, the moment you find yourself to be pregnant, you begin to have hopes and dreams. You build a life for these kids in your imagination. That they're going to graduate, they're going to go to Yale, they're going to get married, have 25 kids, get a great job, and they'll live like next door. And you'll see them every single day. That's what parents think. So the more complex the issues are for, a child, the more difficult it is for parents to resolve. And it doesn't really matter how ready you think yourself to be ready. Look, in our imagination, we assume ourselves to be ready for a whole host of things. Look at this class. We started with 40 people. Everybody assumes that they're ready to stay here for a semester. But then, things become very grounded, very tactile. You're there. It's every Monday and Wednesday from 9:30 to 10:45. There are assignments. You have to tolerate not only the classroom, this environment, me as well. And you realize after a while, yeah, I thought that I could, but I can't. So I'm not even going to drop the class. I'll show up once in a blue moon. So imagine it if we assume that we are ready and the capacity for a whole host of things. Can I tell you a story? It may have nothing to do with your question, but it may in some shape or form. There is a book. You can read it if you want to. I don't really recommend it. It's much better to listen to it in Audible or audio. It's called Brother Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. It's a Russian novelist. His life is relatively interesting, but I'll spare you that. In one of the chapters, there is Easter Sunday. And you know what Easter is, right? The resurrection of Jesus Christ. And you're walking around like a hippie. And so people are celebrating as usual. They think themselves to be great Christians, believers. But all of a sudden they have this strange feeling. I feel really weird. I feel as if there is something in this space. Can't describe it, but there is something. And one says, do you think it's like the presence of Jesus Christ? I say, yes, that's exactly it. It's no longer like in our imagination. It's not just it's like, it's right there. It's so palpable. And there is this hooded man walking around, and everybody like bows to him. They fall to the ground, kiss his feet. And Jesus looks very sad, very disappointed that they have the meat of Christianity, but not the spirit of it. They hold the Bible, they spit out the verses here and there, but they have zero understanding, zero intimacy. It's all about assumptions, imaginations. And then the Pope is standing right there, looking down from the balcony. The Pope, he's like the replacement of Jesus Christ, Papa. If Jesus was the Father, it's now the Pope. He knows what's happening. So he tells his guards to go down there and grab him. They take Jesus to the dungeon. And the Pope goes down there and says, what are you doing here? You were supposed to be dead. And you were not supposed to be resurrected. What are you doing here? He says nothing. Jesus. It's one of the wonderful things about people who know a good amount. They keep their mouths shut. Because they're filled with wisdom. And the Pope says to Jesus that, I'm not going to let you do this. The Catholic Church has spent, or the church, whether the church you belong to, has spent about 1,500 years creating a philosophy that numbs people, comforts people. We don't want to have Christians who carry the cross. Are you kidding? We don't want to create Christians who go against Christianity like Jesus did against the Jews. We want Christians to be sheep, to be part of the herd. We want them to go, bah. That's what we want. We want them to say, yes, Jesus lived. Yes, there are only 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Yes, Jesus is truth. Here's the bread. We want those kinds of Christians. They're good for us. Jesus says nothing. In the end, he basically kisses the Pope on the forehead and then walks towards his death once again. And the point I suppose I'm trying to make is that the Pope assumed himself to be profoundly righteous before the presence of Christ. Now that Christ comes about, he comes to realize he's just a face to an organization that he doesn't really understand, and he doesn't care to understand. So, do parents assume that they are ready for all sorts of things? Yeah. Is it true that they have the capacity once the hurricane comes about? The answer is no. So just in case your parents tell you those things and you actually think they are ready, I think you should pay attention. You should throw them some nuggets to see how they bite and how angry they become when they bite. Pay attention to their emotions, their body language, and just in case you realize they're uncomfortable, but a tiny little bit you've thrown, don't give them the big things. Because you certainly don't want your father or your mom to have a heart attack or go into depression. Lie. Look, I think all of us in this class have a certain burden to carry. You should carry that burden by yourself as long as you possibly can. They're just yours. Just in case you come to realize your back is bent and it's getting a good amount of pain, then if you want to share with the closest people around you, then fine. But don't burden people who are not ready. And don't trust anyone when they say, I'm ready. They may not be. Jerry.
How hard is it for someone to be like a partner or like a romantic situation after like if that's what you like, so like that's what you let them know, that's what you said, like get someone from like a young age like how hard is it
So let me see if I understand you. Let's say you and I met at the age of 15, high school, and we hang out, very casual friendship, and then slowly it blossoms into something more. And then I love you and you love me, right? And we met at the age of 15 and now we're like 30. Everything about us has changed. Let's just say that you're doing economics and I'm doing philosophy. You're listening to Eminem, and I listen to Pavarotti. You like pizza, and I like Persian cuisine. And little by little, our interests are beginning to diverge. Right? How difficult it is to stay or leave. Good. You know, when you talk about relationships that have a good amount of history, and that history binds people together, you're going to have a good amount of push and pull. That we're going to have a disagreement, it's going to turn into a fight, I'm going to say I leave, and I will pack and leave. But just because I don't see you physically, it doesn't mean I can overcome the addiction laying next to you for the past like 15 years. Seeing your face for the past 15 years, you know, smelling your body, having food together, watching a movie together, going around the lake together, even fighting together. You know, one of the things that had happened to Frida's parents, Frida's parents would fight every single day, okay? And when the mother passed, which made Frida even more depressed than she already was, one day she goes to her father sitting in the courtyard and asks him, so, do you miss mom, your wife? Yeah. What do you miss? The fighting? I mean, the fighting is the thing that makes your blood boil. You want to like strangle your wife or husband or your kids. And when they're no longer there and you ask, well, what exactly do you miss about them? You say, yeah, the very thing that used to get me depressed, make my blood boil. So what you're dealing with in the physical absence of your companion is you miss them emotionally. What makes us so complicated is that we grow attached, not just physically, but we grow attached emotionally. And then once you're baited emotionally, your thought process always revolves around the emotions. Irinia, please. How your thought process just revolves around how you can make this work, or how you could detach yourself. Is she? Don't worry, you guys. Look at me. I'm pretty, Jireh, I'm prettier. Look at me. Yeah, it's okay. And so, Irenia, just sit here. It's okay. Leave it alone. Irenia, Irania. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, you guys. So, oh, see, we all thought that we were so patient, so forgiving, filled with compassion and mercy. In a second, this classroom is upside down. Let this go a couple minutes more and you have a fight on your hand. Go ahead. So, your question is, how do you get over it? Let me tell you a story that comes from the Inuits. When there is a disagreement in a relationship and people just want to separate, walk their own ways, imagine it to be a sandstorm. In the case of people in Yemen, Saudi Arabia, there's a sandstorm. In the case of people who live in, say, certain parts of Alaska, what you have is a snowstorm. So what happens in both cases is the following. More so for the Inuits. They sit on the snow. They don't walk. They just sit until the storm passes. Sometimes it's half hour, sometimes a few days. But they sit patiently. They don't nag anyone. They don't throw a temper tantrum. Okay? There is something about their culture that says, listen, the storm is blinding. If you walk in this blinding environment, you'll get lost and you will for sure die. Just sit. And all of a sudden you realize you have a culture. The moment someone is born, their DNA, one of the components that exist in it, patience. What you have here is the following. Romantic relationships are relatively new for us. Okay? First, you have to look at poverty. That you don't marry because you love. You marry because that guy has too many cows and you need cows. They're rich. Second, you don't make decisions. Your parents do. Third, it's a taboo. If anyone sees you with the opposite person, sex, okay, and it's in hiding, your parents will know, and you'll be punished, if not a complete outcast. So the sort of love we're talking about today, the sort of romanticism we're talking about, it's relatively new. It's like anything else in life, you know, like electric cars, self-driving cars. You have no idea what the hell to do with them. And it's going to take you some time to figure things out. So right now, the only thing I can offer you is the following. Because it's new, because none of us in this class have the sort of emotional tools, and because we don't walk into relationships, very much like what we talked about initially. You find them interesting, you live through them, they become boring, and then one person wants out. That narrative, and though you may assume that you know how the narrative works, practically you really don't, so you suffer. It's like a snowstorm. If you have the patience, you sit. You sit in the depression, you sit in the anger without it being expressed. You sit in loneliness. You sit in the tears quietly. And depending on your temperament, depending on the attachment, depending on your capacity, and 1,000 other things, it'll either go away after 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 5 years. There are no quick roads. It's not like IKEA. You go to aisle 25 and pick this and pick that, go home, and 10 minutes later you have a gigantic house. It doesn't work that way.
Europe and IKEA, that place is massive.
Yeah, it is.
Very high.
Yeah. It's really a good place to go and meet people.
And what?
And meet people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're looking for a table? Let me help you. So,
You're looking for like lo-fi.
I wouldn't know what that is, but I guess, yeah. It's not the best thing to say or do. Find a way to escape the emotions. Go out, updates. Where are you going? I understand. Well, listen, we'll talk. Oh, there is no school on Wednesday, right?
Correct.
I'm sorry?
No, there's no school.
Yeah,
It's a teacher,
yeah, we're being developed, yes. So, take care.
Bye.
Bye.